Okay, so story time. So basically my friends and I, we'll call them Hannah, Jasmine, Ben, Maddie, and Jack. So we all went to the park and me and Hannah went for a walk with her dog. All of a sudden we came along a path. We obviously decided to go. We were like 10. We didn't know better. We ended up finding a rope swing. We started playing on it and then I felt someone pushing me. I panicked, but it was just Jasmine, so we just laughed it off. We ended up going farther up the path and we saw Ben. We went back to the swing so he could go on it. But then we heard rustling in the bushes, like really loud rustling, where it couldn't have been any animal. So we slowly backed up because it was literally so loud. Then I was like, oh, I see Maddie. Then Jack and Maddie popped out of behind the tree. Except Maddie was in a different place to where I thought I saw him. And I was like, They were like, what? Stop being so dramatic. I told them that there was someone else behind that bush. Like for part 2. Okay, so part 2. So I was like, there's someone else behind that bush. We literally left. My mom came looking for us, and it turned out that the forest was known for many people doing very, 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 very wrong things. And the person I ended up seeing had a knife. So we low-key could have died. Isn't that fun?
There was a fire at my job. Story time. So there I was, just working, trying to get that coin. And 15 minutes before I get out of work, there was a fire. The janitor comes up to me and he's like, we're gonna evacuate. Not gonna lie, at first I thought he was joking. I literally laughed at him and went back to typing. And then I saw the police get there and I was like, oh, he's serious. So I grabbed my things and I left the building as I should, obviously. I'm not trying to die, I'm too cute for that. So then I get outside and I'm talking to one of the doctors because, I work at a clinic. And then I realized I left my lunchbox and I just got super depressed because I was like, food over everything. And I was ready to risk it all. I was ready to risk it all for that food. I actually did try to go back in, but then the security guard was like, you can't go back in, turn around. But you know that saying, no man left behind? Well, in my case, it's no food left behind. So I waited in the cold for about 30 minutes because it was the weekend and I wouldn't have been able to get it until Monday. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'm not trying to clean out a nasty smelling lunchbox. No, thank you. Also, tell me why fires keep following me. It's literally December. Why is there fires? Who has a hex on me?
I got my best friend expelled. Story time. When I was in high school, I used to have this best friend named Kyle. And we used to mess with each other all the time. So when I returned to school, I came up with this prank that may have went a little too far. I stayed after school and waited for all the teachers to go home. Went to his homeroom class and destroyed it. I mean, I really messed it up. I dumped over the teacher's desk, took a permanent marker and wrote all over the students' desks. And then I took that permanent marker and signed Kyle's name on the whiteboard. The next day, Kyle got called to the office and I thought he was just going to get suspended like I did. But they actually decided to expel him. And he couldn't convince them that it wasn't him because our school didn't have cameras at the time. Until this day, he doesn't know it was me.
The time my crazy neighbor tried to go on a killing spree in our neighborhood. This wasn't no average killing spree. Dude had a whole rifle. He was going into people's backyard, jumping fences, literally trying to break into people's homes. Just get ready for the story time. So I don't exactly remember when this happened. It happened a few years ago when I was still in high school because I just graduated this year and I know that another one of my friends that went to that school and lives in this same neighborhood saw him in their backyard. So this guy was literally our next door neighbor. I've lived in the same neighborhood since 4th grade and he was here when we moved here. Him and my dad honestly had a really good bond. If one of them needed a lawnmower, they would let them borrow it. And I was even in band at one point and I was selling butter braids because they do it for a fundraiser. And he bought several of my butter braids. I got hella changed. I genuinely thought this man was kind-hearted until this night. I was chilling in my room and all of a sudden I see a light flashing through my window. Obviously I go to check it out and it's police. Several police. One of them waves their hand like this, trying to get me to close the blind. So I do and go tell my family what I just saw. And we hear a knock on the door. Thinking it's police, we go to open the door. And it's our crazy neighbor with a rifle. Part 2 of the time my crazy neighbor tried to go on a killing spree in our neighborhood. Like I said, we thought it was going to be police at the door. We have a doorbell, and whenever someone doesn't use our doorbell, it's usually police. And the fact that I just saw the police outside, I thought it was going to be them. But no, child, it was our crazy neighbor with a rifle. Mind you, at this point in time, I did not see the rifle. I was scared. I was hiding behind my sister. Like, y'all keep all that. Didn't see his rifle, but I did get to glance at him, though. Yeah, as soon as my dad opens the door and our neighbor sees us, he says something along the lines of, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Dad immediately shuts the door in his face. Dad turns around to the rest of us and tells us that he saw a rifle at his feet. At this point, I'm thinking, child, I know this man did not just knock on our door to hide a gun. Then we could open the door and he could shoot us, right? It's time to evacuate. I actually called the police instead. But while one of my family members was on the phone with the dispatcher, he heard another knock on the door. This time it followed up with them announcing that they were the police. The police officer was shaking. He said we needed to evacuate immediately because our crazy neighbor was in our backyard trying to break in. Part 3 of the time my crazy neighbor tried to go on a killing spree in our neighborhood. The police knock on our door and tell us that we have to evacuate because our crazy neighbor is now in our backyard trying to break into our house. So this means that he was still on our property after we closed the door on him. He literally went to our backyard after we slammed the door in his face and was trying to figure out a way to get in through the back. So we frantically start packing. We hear yelling outside, we hear dogs barking. The police basically had him cornered in our backyard. So we had to get out of there as quickly and safely as possible. So we have police surrounding our house. We all finish packing and go inside our garage so we can get out from there because it's safer. There were literal police cars following us all the way to the hotel. Once we got into the hotel, they told us that they were going to call us when we were good to go back home. We only stayed at that hotel for one night. And once they called us the next morning to tell us that we were good to go back home, my dad asks them exactly what happened. Apparently that night there was 2 boys across the street playing basketball. It was really late at night and he was extremely tired and he had work the next day. He kindly came out and asked the boys to be quiet. They kept being loud. It only went downhill from there. Part 4 of the time my crazy neighbor tried to go on a killing spree in our neighborhood. But yeah, based off what the police told us was he kept having to come outside to tell the boys to be quiet. He had to work early the next day, so he was getting really frustrated. Boys were being really rude about it and just laughing at him and just like poking fun at him and making fun of him and stuff. He got really angry and he went back into his house, grabbed his rifle, came back out, and threatened the boys, the rifle in his hand. Obviously, the boys run back inside and call the police. He didn't shoot at them. He had a gun in his hand. He was cornered. He didn't shoot at anyone. I genuinely think that he had major mental issues and something just really triggered him that night. Either it was the boys or the stress just got built up too much. I genuinely think that he did not want to hurt anyone. I don't know exactly what happened that night. He had a rifle. Like, if he wanted to hurt somebody, he could hurt somebody. But he didn't. I'm guessing the rifle was genuinely just for intimidation. I don't know. Don't take my word on it. After we came back to our house, that man was gone. We haven't talked to him or heard about him since.
My mom spanked my bully. Story time. When I was in 3rd grade, I used to hate going to the bus stop because there was a boy there who would bully me. And it got so bad that some days I would go home crying. I felt like I couldn't do anything because he was much older than I was. So of course I told my mom and she called the school and they did nothing about it. So then my mom somehow found out who his parents were and she went to go talk to them. And all they said about it was boys will be boys, there's really nothing we can do about it. And then that's when my mom was like, if y'all don't handle it, I will. So the next morning she told me to go to the bus stop and if my bully bothered me to come back home and tell her. So I went to the bus stop and of course he bothered me. So I went back home, told my mom, and she immediately grabbed her belt and dragged me back to the bus stop. She walked up to that boy and was like, are you bothering my son? And the boy was like, yes, I am. What are you gonna do about it, Grandma? My mom grabbed that boy by his shirt, turned him around, and started spanking him with her belt.
I got hit by a car at work. Story time. So 2 weeks ago, I was at work, obviously, and I was getting trained. But they were training me in a different building. This building just so happened to be behind a grocery store. And during my lunch, I walked over to the grocery store to get a fork. To get to the store, I had to walk through the parking lot, just like you do for any store. As I was walking through the parking lot, I walked behind this parked car. I didn't realize that they were trying to back up, but they were. And then they backed up into me. It was honestly just a little tap, but it still hurted. So it was a young girl, and after she slightly taps me, she comes out of her car, hysterical, freaking out like, oh my god, are you okay? Like, do you have to go to the hospital? I'm so sorry. She was freaking out more than I was. To make her feel a little bit better, I was trying to joke around with her, and I was like, girl, I'm okay, I'm alive, you didn't finish the job. After I said that, it just made the situation worse. She just stared at me like I was crazy and said, you need help. And I was like, girl, I'm trying to make you feel better for hitting me. Like, actually, you know what? My neck actually hurts. I might just sue. Make her pockets hurt.